Welcome to Together You're Better. We have in studio Helen Newby, an incredible cellist. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. And the point of Together We're Better is to just show how we can all sort of shine light on others, lift each other up, and celebrate through arts and music education. And you've been doing that your whole career, starting at Oberlin, then going to SFCM, a lot of chamber music in your background. Can you talk a little bit about what the role of cello has been and kind of the journey going from, maybe when you started to what it was like to play chamber music at the conservatory level?
Yes, I started playing cello when I was about 7 years old. And so both my parents are musicians. So it was kind of a given that I would play music in some way. And so then I ended up deciding to stick with it through college. And so I went to Oberlin, had my whole world kind of blown up going there in a good way. Just like it was an amazing place to be. And then after that, went to SFCM. Yeah, we were talking a little bit about sort of what my vision was for myself going into school and how I wanted to be a musician. And for me, I was never really interested in the idea of being a sort of orchestral musician. I liked playing in orchestra, but I think I was always more into sort of close collaborations with people. I think going into undergrad, I really had no idea what I was going to do. But kind of the further along I got through undergrad, sort of realized I really valued these sort of close collaborations with people, whether that was through chamber music or meeting musicians who were sort of interested in other genres and kind of learning more about that, working a lot with composers. I think going into undergrad, I didn't even realize that there were still living composers, which is very silly to admit, but she's like, oh, people still compose music. That's cool. And so that was also kind of mind blowing. And it was very fun to sort of be part of that process with composers where we would be working one-on-one and creating something together. That was very rewarding for me. And then going into SFCM, that program there really values chamber music a lot, which was great. And so there I met a few other musicians who I ended up forming the Amaranth Quartet with. That became a really large part of my life when I was in the Bay Area.
What's chamber music like when when you're playing with folks that you don't know versus people that you're maybe trying to build sort of this business of string quartet with?
They're both very different processes. I've done fair share of both. I definitely love the experience of working with the same people over and over again, and how a lot of things sort of become unspoken eventually, when you're playing with a group that you've been playing with for a while, and you can just tell by really someone's energy that you can kind of tell what they're going to do, and just their gestures and the way they're breathing, and pretty incredible to experience that. But it's really fun to kind of step outside of that and play with people that you don't play with all the time. Notice your habits, when you're playing with people, learning to read the vibe of a new crowd of people and see how people, I don't know, it kind of gets you to step out of your comfort zone a little bit and react to new voices. Act of playing with different people, I think, is important. Hear how other people might phrase or shape things or what their ideas are, I think is also really valuable.
Well, you mentioned two things. So listening to people that you don't know. So, in society that happens all the time, right? We run into folks with differing opinions, and I think that's healthy. And one of the problems with being sheltered in place is that our conversations tend to be through Facebook. So our field of exposure to sort of the wider path of our society might be narrowed to just our closest circle. So I think that is definitely one of the things that, being sheltered for such a long time will have an impact on how we end up having conversations with each other. And you also mentioned, that to work with somebody, you get to really understand their body language and the motions and the way they breathe, and you can see their bow arm moving. It becomes very predictable. So I know at this point that Amaranth is no longer together, and of course, one of the reasons being that you're just physically in different parts of the country, which would have been an issue anyway, but
Right.
especially now that we're required to be in different parts of the country. Did chamber music, and what were some of the things within chamber music that you found really benefited just the way you communicated with music?
I guess one of the main differences between chamber music and sort of traditional orchestral playing is you will inherently have a voice, and literally your voice will be heard more than it would be in an orchestra, where the point in orchestra is sort of to have a somewhat uniform sound. But yeah, in chamber music, everyone's voices are very, very much heard. And in the rehearsal process, your voice is also very much heard and valued, which isn't to say that might not happen in orchestra, but it's just obvious, it's very different. Being in chamber music is important for me personally because I feel like I can actually be somewhat shy sometimes, and not always like the first to speak up. So actually, it was helpful to be in a group with others who I think sort of encouraged my voice and ideas and sort of helped me kind of be like, oh, actually, I do have valuable things to say and I do have input. And to like be with people who you can trust in that way, who can kind of strengthen your voice, I think is really amazing. Getting to hear the input of everyone else, like just even in my quartet, we'd all had really different experiences coming into the group. Like Emily, for instance, played a lot of Baroque music. And so she had a lot of really like cool insight with Baroque sounds, even if we weren't playing something Baroque, just like thinking really carefully about like our bows and things like that. Julie and I were really into new music. And so we would kind of, whenever we would play something that was like a little bit more contemporary, we would like get really into it and very like geeky. So yeah, it is an interesting time now where I think I do miss like the chamber music aspect a lot. There are ways to sort of make that happen over Zoom or whatever, but it is something I find myself really missing right now.
When you do chamber music, you have the opportunity to be in a comfortable environment where you can share and also hear that everybody is contributing equally. And so I mean, it's a wonderful element to any music program. So for any music teacher who's watching, just the impact of integrating chamber music into your curriculum, I think is invaluable. What you mentioned is exactly what I would hope that people gain from chamber music. So, okay, so you did Amaranth, and then you work with One Found Sound, which is a conductorless ensemble, which is, I think, very liberating. It's maybe the best of both worlds because you get to be with a group, but you still have that sort of democratic approach to where there's many voices can contribute.
Yeah, One Pound Sound has really, really been awesome. I do feel like it is kind of like the best of both worlds. And I think, I mean, I haven't been in One Pound Sound since it started, but I think there's been definitely like a journey of figuring out how to have everyone's voices heard, but also have it not be like chaos in the rehearsal setting. So the founders and like various members of One Pound Sound, I think have put in a lot of amazing work to kind of create a really smooth rehearsal process. So there's definitely still like a sense of democracy, but also their structure with having like leaders for pieces, the string section leaders and also the other sections will like rotate by the piece. So there isn't always like the same principal cellist or the same concertmaster. It changes piece by piece. But yeah, so there's the sort of the section leaders, and then there are the rehearsal leaders, and there's usually like 3 or so per piece. And they sort of guide the rehearsal flow and process and come up with a plan usually before the rehearsal. So it actually, the way that One Found Sound works and how the rehearsals kind of work really has inspired me in my chamber music rehearsals, for instance. Just like coming in with a plan and knowing that the plan might not always be exactly as you envisioned, but just having sort of intention with your rehearsal. And of course you could do that with your own practicing too. That model was very inspiring to me. Being in the actual like performance it's pretty incredible. I think as much as like you could try to fight it in an orchestra concert, there can sometimes be a sense of like going into autopilot, like as much as you don't want it to happen. But I find that like One Found Sound concerts are definitely some of the most like present I personally feel in a concert. You just get this real sense of like camaraderie and everyone really cares. But it's also a very like supportive, encouraging environment. It's really great.
You've spent your whole life doing music. What do you see sort of now that we're all joining this group called Being an Adult, and you look back, like what's the role of arts education? Like, why should we just keep this thing going?
Lots of reasons. I mean, I do think that playing music with others is sort of teaching us how to just like play well with others in a like larger metaphorical sense. like learning to like literally listen to the person next to you. You're like, there is this sort of sense of like compromise that's always happening. I mean, I think even in an orchestral setting, but especially like, I know you do like chamber music with some of the students. And I think it's very cool to like see them start to figure out how to talk to each other and like ask for something um, in a way where it's like direct but polite, and it's hard. I think it's not saying that adults who play chamber music necessarily are like amazing at those skills. It's like a constant process of like, music is tricky because your ego's in it a little bit, but trying to figure out ways to take the ego out of it, and something that's so personal, trying to not, I don't know, not offend your chamber music comrades. It's tricky. Yeah, it's kind of like a constant learning process. And I mean, I personally love and like miss coaching chamber music. I found that was like the most fun, rewarding teaching, especially with kids, and seeing a lot of the rehearsal would be us actually rehearsing, but a lot of the rehearsal would also be talking about how we talk to each other and our language and how to create something as one, and how just because you're not the first violinist doesn't mean you're not important. You're actually just as important, sometimes maybe even more important. Yeah, figuring out just like how everyone's voice can be of equal importance, even if maybe it doesn't necessarily feel that way. Yeah, how to like share ideas safely. And yeah, I feel like so much of that is so important for, I mean, all ages, but like especially kids.
Which I think for me is one of the big things I'm really missing, is that shared community experience. Now our communities are through screens
Right.
for the most part. However, leave it to artists to find ways to make the best of it. And so you are releasing these incredible videos that are just fun. They make me smile. They make me feel, good. I get to see a concert. I get to hear great cello playing, and I also know the energy and effort it takes to produce them. Tell us about how this came up to be, and how you're managing to put out such an excellent product when it's only been a few months since we've all had to adapt.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I originally, before the videos happened, I started doing these covers, and the way that happened was because I would want to say after maybe like a month or so of quarantine, I got asked to play at a Zoom political rally. Truly a lot of firsts there. And so the person who's sort of organizing it, who's a friend of mine, asked for like mostly pop covers. So I was trying to figure out a way to do like solo cello pop covers that wasn't like totally lame. And so, because like in like most great pop songs, there's just like so much stuff going on, and like a lot of those details I feel like are what make a great song great. Just sort of actually similar to like the chamber music thing, like the first violin might have the melody most of the time, but a lot of the interesting stuff is often happening in the other parts. I decided to record a bunch of like backing tracks essentially of myself, and then play along live with them. So I did a cover of Africa by Toto, and Lovely Day by Bill Withers. And so people really seemed to like them. And so it kind of like encouraged me to like keep doing these covers. And then I ended up actually getting hired to play at some of my friends' work happy hours, just doing the same sort of similar thing. And so eventually like decided to make these videos. And so that's been like a collaboration between my partner and I. I've been doing all of the arranging and recording, all the recording through this program called Ableton, which I hadn't really done that much work with before quarantine, but they happened to have a 3-month free trial. So decided like I really didn't have anything to lose and might as well try it. My partner's been filming everything, and he's been editing it through this program called Final Cut. So we've both been like learning these new softwares and kind of honing these sort of new skills. And it's been like really the main way we've been staying sane. Yeah, it's been really fun. So I've been uploading the videos, and it's been a really cool way to connect with a lot of people who I haven't talked to in a long time. Like a lot of like friends from high school, and then like a lot of my family's been really enjoying it, which is really sweet. And yeah, it's been, I mean, it's like this delicate balance of like, for a while, my partner and I said we like couldn't read the comments just in case, like there's, the occasional like grump, which is just going to happen. but I can like only resist so much. And so it is nice to see generally like positive feedback, and um, yeah, people seem to really enjoy it, which is great.
So how do you choose the pieces that you're choosing? Is it pieces that just meant something to you when you were, in high school? Because like the albums I still have in my CD player are Nirvana, Radiohead, Soundgarden, right? Because I was early '90s, I was in the Northwest,
Hmm.
and those were all the pieces. That's still back, like those are the bands that are in my brain, and in my heart when I'm feeling like a 15-year-old again. How do you come up with the selections? Are people throwing out suggestions to you, or is this just these pieces are something that you connect with?
Yeah, most of them are ones that I have chosen. So I've gotten definitely some suggestions. Some that I will perhaps heed, some maybe not. But yeah, I think I'm a very like nostalgic person. So a lot of the songs that I've chosen are just like longtime favorite songs. Yeah, and now of course I like have this like kind of like when I'm listening to something, I'll like be listening for certain things and like see if I think it's a song that I can arrange. Like unfortunately I can't really like arrange any rap songs. I do actually really like hip hop and rap, but it just I don't know how I would do a rap on cello. So like that genre is kind of like I can't really do much unfortunately, but yeah, so a lot of the songs are just songs I really like, and I feel like there's certain genres that like work really well for being arranged. Like I've been doing a lot of, I'm working on like one right now, but like kind of dramatic like pop from like the late 90s to early 2000s. I feel like actually works super well. It's yeah, just like the drama of it, just begging to be arranged. Yeah, not necessarily like some of the songs I've chosen like already have some strings in them, but not all of them. Yeah, I just generally listen for something that kind of has like interesting textures and where there's like most pop will be a little repetitive, but like hopefully it's not totally repetitive throughout.
I guess that's how you can orchestrate it too, right? So you're doing a little bit of transcribing because the melody is going to be sort of a verbatim because that's what people get hooked into, and then all of the notes around it you get to choose if 8 cellos are going to be playing that texture or just a couple of cellos, or if it's going to be fast notes, slow notes. You get to do some of that in the composition phase. So you're doing all of this from scratch. That's amazing. That just makes the whole project even cooler. Like I didn't know how the process was going for you, but the fact that you're writing all of it and doing all the recording and all the playing, I mean, that's phenomenal.
It's been very fun. And yeah, it is like again kind of going off of like how all the interesting stuff is in like the details. Like yeah, like transcribing the melody is always like the easiest part generally, but then the like all the intricacies of like the texture and like figuring out how I can sort of sound like the guitar or the drum or whatever is always like a really interesting challenge. My goals for doing this are like, I mean, there's a few, but just like the basic one was just like getting better at arranging and figuring out like kind of what sounds good and what doesn't, and getting better at recording myself. And I feel like all of that has been happening. And like, the bonus is making those videos and people like connecting to them, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's nice to have this sort of online resource of friends and family, but also just new people who might not even know what a cello is necessarily, unless they just happen to hear the Cranberries arranged for cello, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it draws people in. Do you find that this might be something that you keep? So let's say tomorrow, we have a vaccine, we have a therapeutic, and your life kind of goes back to concertizing. How much do you think you'll keep of all the new stuff that you've learned?
I mean, I'd love to keep doing it. I know I was just thinking how for my videos we have done like the same tagline for every single one, which is like genre, bored musician in quarantine. I'm like, what's my tagline going to be when this is over? But I definitely think I'll keep doing it. I mean,
And this is just me asking just tons of questions about this because I'm a little bit blown away by just the amount of steps it takes to put something like this together, and that oftentimes we're looking at production time people, like there's folks who are doing the writing and there's folks who are doing the video, there's teams, right? And here it is, you're doing all these steps, so you're physically writing out each part, so you have these parts, so you could at some
mhm.
point say, hey, 7 cello friends, like let's get together now that I'm not off in this part of the world and you're not off in that part of the world, and let's play these pieces, so it's all written down and ready for
Yeah.
groups to perform if that happens again.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I've definitely thought about I guess I don't know how that stuff works with like just licensing, kind of on like the sort of copyright level, but I mean, it exists. Like there are definitely arrangements of songs that you can buy online. So there is a way, but I mean, I would just literally not even like money wise, it'd be fun to like just play with friends. I've actually sort of been, I mean, I started doing like pop songs arrangements kind of originally for like students actually. So I would do that a lot when some students would like maybe suggest a song to me that they were really into, or I could tell that like not every student's gonna like love playing Suzuki, which is fine. And I totally get it. And sometimes it takes something else to like get them into playing the cello. And you know, like I had a student for a while who like was super into like musicals, and so I would like arrange a bunch of songs from musicals for him to play. And another song or another student who was really into like Imagine Dragons. Actually, I've had multiple students who are really into Imagine Dragons. So I would like, so that was kind of actually, I feel like how I first started sort of doing arrangements was like for students. And I kind of am interested in like finding a sort of like pedagogical way to like work on these songs with kids in some sort of educational way. So I've been kind of like stewing on that idea a little bit, and that feels like interesting to me. So that's like another way I'd like to keep this project going.
I think that would be terrific, because I know I get so many requests from kids and I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying. Just email me a link to the song that you like and I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
And because we want kids to just enjoy the arts in any way, right? I don't think there's any need to say that one genre is better than the other, whether it's classical, jazz, or pop, right? Like whatever it is, like just it's music and it's connecting us and it's a way to express. And you know, however we can get students to be excited about practicing their instruments, because like you mentioned, I mean, there's a challenge to becoming the cellist that you've become. There are a lot of open strings, there's a lot of scales, there's a lot of just things that you have to do to become who you are. But along the way, I don't see any harm in enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like everything in kind of like in moderation and balance. Like, yes, like I'll have most of my students like work on scales and things like that. And just, I think, I mean, in general, I feel like there's never a one size fits all solution for teaching. And like some students do really like playing Suzuki, and that's cool. But for some, they need like a little something extra to like really get them interested. And I'm like, I love those challenges of like finding something that will like get them hooked on maybe not even playing cello, just like music and playing music. So yeah, I feel like pop or like rock or whatever can like be a really kind of like cool, powerful tool in that way.
Well, I, for one, hope that as we all get back to normal, which of course we all hope for, is that in that time that you do go ahead and follow this idea of pedagogy through all these things that you have written, and that you can come up with courses for how to teach and learn compositions, that students can find their own pieces that they wish to write down, and also just share like some sort of sequence technique that can correlate with whatever pieces you know might be necessary. Like maybe you know, Louie Louie is pop music book 1, and then Radiohead is like pop music book 9. You kind of work your way through this sequence of composition and performance. But I mean, I think that's a wonderful gift and idea that you're considering. I think the videos you're giving they're making a lot of folks smile. I see the joy of the community that you're contributing to. I just think it's fantastic. And I had to reach out and just talk to you about it, because I think you're just wonderful and all that you're giving. We're going to give all sorts of links to everybody, but best places to find you if they want to reach out about lessons or ideas for collaborations, I'm assuming it's the website.
Yeah, so the website should have all of like the sort of pertinent links. So if you go on there, you can just like send me a message like directly through the website. My email should also be listed on there. And I have a link for my YouTube page, which has all of the videos I've been making. And I think my link for like my Facebook and Instagram are also on there, which you can connect with as well.
Terrific, because we certainly hope that people subscribe and share. We know that we want to keep encouraging and supporting and finding ways to help musicians and artists. And one of those ways, of course, is just to make sure that they subscribe to your YouTube channel. And if nothing else, leave a positive comment so that as you get ready for the next video, you can just feel that smile as we all share in the experience. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Helen Newby, and she is showing us that together we're better. Helen, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I just want to remind everybody to always be our best selves.